I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong, but I'm not quite there yet. This episode is better than the first, which isn't saying a lot, but it was better. I'm still tired of everyone putting down Fury and Talos. Pretty much every male character other than Gravik is completely incompetent. And then there's this.
Well, me and my mama used to take these long train rides to Detroit. Travel back then wasn't nowhere near this elegant. Just had to ride in the color car. It was hot, sweaty. Bathroom didn't work half the time. We couldn't go in the dining car. So we brought fried chicken, white bread, deviled eggs, pound cake, and a shoebox.
What the hell is that? What a weird monologue to put into a Marvel series. Like, imagine if that happened in real life. Imagine you're sitting on a train with a black friend and they say that. You would be staring at them in utter bemusement. One of Nick Fury's closest friends and most loyal agents who stuck by him all these years has just died, and he's talking about Jim Crow laws. And ironically, he says this right before telling Talos that there isn't enough space or tolerance on the planet Earth for the Skrulls, and tells him to get off the train. Trust Marvel to put out-of-place comments about race into a Disney Plus series. And it isn't the only one in this episode. Though I'll admit, it did make me hungry. Fried chicken, deviled eggs, and pound cake. I just ate breakfast, and now I'm hungry again. We do learn in this episode that Gravik's hold, his control, and the infiltration of the Skrulls goes much deeper than we thought. Roughly 1 million Skrulls are on Earth, which Fury didn't know about. The Skrull Council is made up of powerful and influential people, including the British Prime Minister, the Secretary General of NATO, and Shooter McGavin as a talk show host for an analog news station to Fox called FXN. And there's also two others. Gravik threatens the council into naming him the general of the Skrull army, which gives him the power to prepare for war against humanity beyond what he's been doing so far by setting up terrorist acts. And this plan is only opposed by one member of the council named Shirley, who strangely he just allows to leave despite the fact that she wouldn't submit to his rule. At the Skrulls' nuclear facility base, Gaia, Talos' daughter, who is still following orders despite not fully trusting Gravik after she heard that he killed her mother, and she's basically snooping around the compound and stumbles upon a project that I believe is meant to give the Skrulls superpowers. Obviously they can already shapeshift, but I'm talking about powers that we've seen used by heroes in the MCU. On a really old computer, she types in the name of a scientist named Rosa Dalton, who I'm pretty sure is a Skrull, and she finds the files on the DNA of Groot, a Frost Beast from Jotunheim, Cole Obsidian from Infinity War and Endgame, as well as Extremis, the biohack created by Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3. Now, where'd they get that DNA from? Well, Groot, I'm sure they found pieces of him on some battlefield on Earth. Cole Obsidian's hand was cut off at the beginning of Infinity War. The Frost Beast, I think, was let loose at the end of Thor 2 because of the portals into the other dimensions. And there are still some people with Extremis running around. One of them appeared in Shang-Chi. Now, when I first saw this, I thought maybe the Skrulls were replacing these people, like maybe Groot is currently a Skrull. But then I remembered one of the trailers and realized that the Skrulls are giving themselves more powers, similar to what they did in the Secret Invasion comic. Obviously, it's going to be easier to take over the world if they can hold their own against the heroes. Now, with the Daltons being behind this project, the only Dalton that I could think of from Marvel Comics is a guy called Professor Dalton from New X-Men, who worked at the place called The World, which is a weapons plus research facility where he was genetically altering humans and mutants. So I don't know if this couple is an Easter egg for that. More than likely, it's just a coincidence and doesn't amount to anything. Kind of like in WandaVision, where they hyped up an unnamed scientist for a few episodes, and people were theorizing that it might be Reed Richards or Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, but it ended up being just some random chick that Monica Rambeau knew. So now we know quite a bit about Gravik's plan, as well as his motivations. His parents were killed in the Kree-Skrull War, and he escaped from behind enemy lines. Once he made it to Earth, still a child, he signed up to be one of Fury's agents with the promise that Fury and Captain Marvel would find the Skrulls a new home. Promise that Fury obviously didn't keep. Unfortunately, most of the episode is people crapping all over Fury again, including Rhodey, who quote-unquote fires Fury after telling him that he won't be joining his war against the Skrulls. I'm not sure if that means Rhodey is a Skrull. I know people have been theorizing about that. I kind of hope he's not, because I really liked his no-nonsense attitude in this episode. Rhodey's really stepped up in the world since Endgame. In fact, I think he replaced Thunderbolt Ross as the Secretary of State, though I could be wrong. Although, unfortunately, this scene is also where that second weird conversation about race is brought up. They talk about how people who look like them, obviously meaning black, don't get to make rank and get to high places in government, like people such as Alexander Pierce, who was promoted because of who his family was. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Pierce got his position because he was Hydra, but whatever. And Fury also believes that their shared blackness means that Rhodey should help him out, that he owes him favor or special treatment or something. Here's why I think that this talk about race doesn't do either of these characters justice. Nick Fury and James Rhodes in this conversation reflect this modern, toxic perspective on race and quote-unquote ancestral history. They're basically reducing their accomplishments solely to their racial identity and overlooking their individual talents and the contributions they've made, which fuel their personal growth as characters, as well as reflecting how we've progressed as a society. Fury's sense of entitlement based on race not only undermines the importance of merit and qualifications in whatever occupation you find yourself in, but ironically, focusing on using power, which is what he's doing with Rhodey, to exert control, disregards the fairness and accountability that these two supposedly didn't get to experience. This unnecessary baggage only serves to drag down two very accomplished men who up until this point have never been the type to whine about race. I really want to judge this series solely on the merits of its storytelling, but it's hard to do that when Marvel pulls this shit, giving us some sort of political lecture, wagging their finger at the audience, and passing it off as dialogue. The train scene was especially bad. Imagine two people in a comic shop talking about the Secret Invasion comic when it first came out. They're excited, they're discussing their theories about what might happen next in the series, their theories about who might secretly be a Skrull, and then imagine some old black guy comes over and starts talking about how race relations weren't good when he was a kid. That's kind of how I feel about these scenes in the show. And some people will say, why are you so uncomfortable hearing these conversations? I'm not uncomfortable, I'm just annoyed. These are unnecessary distractions from the story. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has become more tolerant, enlightened, or woke, or whatever you want to call it, after hearing these poorly thought, poorly worded, and completely out of place lectures. And that's exactly what they are. It's the writer's poor attempt at passing off their political beliefs as a story. It's bad enough that they baited the fans by calling the series Secret Invasion, even though the director himself admits that Marvel told him not to read the comic.
When I first landed this job, they said, don't read the comics. The story has nothing to do with what's in the comics.
Just tell a good story. Stop having every character that Fury meets tell him he's a washed-up loser. He's the protagonist. The audience showed up for Nick Fury, and I have yet to see that character. Hopefully the story starts getting better. I think if they drop the political nonsense, it can get better. But that means the story itself also has to get better. And I think they're getting there, but I'm not sure it'll be satisfying by the time we get to episode 6. Let me know what you think in the comments. Specifically, I want to know your guys' theories regarding what other superpowers the Skrulls might have collected or have yet to collect. And I almost forgot to mention that Nick Fury is not only married, but he's married to a Skrull. Now, because of the circumstances of the scene, I'm not 100% sure if he knows she's a Skrull, but I'm guessing since it's Nick Fury, he probably does. Though that makes me wonder why she doesn't stay in her Skrull form 100% of the time, especially in the privacy of their own home. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you never miss out on a new video. And if you haven't already, check out my review of episode 1. Thanks for watching.